Yes, it is Birds 365. Somehow, John McMullen just disappeared. It was like I-95 collapsing. John just, poof, went into the netherworld. We're hoping to get him back up here in just a second. But I do have Jeff Kerr joining me. Mr. Kerr, I know you like to get down to Sunday Philly games, and they were victorious yesterday against the Dodgers. Got 2 out of 3 in the series, so successful homestand before they head out west. You go yesterday?
I did go yesterday, and I went Friday for the Dick Allen bobblehead and the college football walk-off, so it was a good weekend.
Very nice. How do you get there? Do you venture down 95 at all? Did you have to change your travel plans to get to the game yesterday?
It actually didn't affect anything on my end, so because I'm out, toward Royersford. So the way I go, it all depends like what time I leave. Like I could have went 76 like I normally do, but I usually go 476 to 95. 476 was backed up, but it wasn't any different than it was on a normal Sunday. I think I did hit traffic a little earlier, but I normally avoid Northeast Philadelphia as much as I can because I usually don't go that way. Although one of my favorite cheesesteak places is in Levittown. So I don't think I'll be going there quite as often now.
You have to be doing without that going forward for a while because it's going to be nasty. So you go down below and come back up on 95.
Yeah, correct. And then I go over the Platte Bridge and get to the stadium.
Understood. Yeah, it's going to be a stone cold mess here for the next several months. And for those of us who cover the Eagles now, I cover the Phillies, and you're a fan and everything else. So, yeah, there's still going to be traveling that needs to be done, but be thankful that the Phillies are in the midst of a down season after they finish up the OTAs. And I don't know if you heard, Jeff Kerr, but Christian Ellis is going to be an all-pro this year because he intercepted a couple of plays in activities this past week. Yes, I kid because I care. John told me last week these practices mean nothing. Now he's talking about the veteran guys. They surely mean something to guys who are going to try and make the team, and I appreciate the fact that Christian Ellis was out there busting it. Do we get too caught up in this 7-on-7 shorts drills and overestimate what a guy can actually do because they look good in June in an Eagle activity?
I think we do to an extent. Now, look, I'm not going to deny. I think Christian Ellis had an amazing minicamp from the 2 practices I was at, and John was at there too. But yeah, I think we get a little too overboard with the whole 7-on-7s, the helmets and shells, because you're not going in full pads. You're not really seeing what these guys could do when you get 11-on-11. There's no offensive line, there's no this, there's no that. But it's hard to deny what Christian Ellis was able to do and how he was on first team. And look, he made himself noticed and in a good way. And that's a good thing. Will it determine if Christian Ellis is going to be on this team come September? I think Christian Ellis gave himself a really good head start in terms of where he fits on this depth chart, John.
Hey, thanks for getting me through. The dog was not waiting today, so wasn't had to step out for a little bit, but I appreciate it, guys. I heard you talking Christian Ellis. I want to get to him, Jeff, but real quick because I don't know how in depth he got with Christian. I wanted to mention Nick Sirianni and Trey Sermon. He keeps bringing up Trey Sermon, and he keeps bringing him up unprompted. Now, Jody and I have been doing the show for a while now. I always kind of chuckle at the Kerry Vincents, the Mac McCains, the Tay Gowans. They were talking them up during the offseason. And then all of a sudden, they get James Bradbury. So Nick's not going to throw anybody under the bus ever. But he keeps bringing them up. Like he's not getting asked the question. They had no cornerbacks at the time. He was asked questions about the cornerbacks, and he talked up the cornerbacks he had. Now he's got a bunch of running backs. He's got guys he likes that were here, Boston Scott, Kenny Gainwell. They bring in Rashad Penny, DeAndre Swift, and he keeps bringing up Trey Sermon. Is it real to you? Does that make it real to you?
I think it's real because of the value of the position. I think a guy like Trey Sermon could come in here and average 4.5 yards per carry behind this offensive line that they need to call upon him. My question is, John, who are they getting rid of at running back? Because I keep saying they have 5 guys that could be on this team, but there's no way they keep all 5, right?
No, I can't imagine. I mean, the one guy, now I'll say the other end, the one guy never talks about seemingly is Rashad Penny.
Yeah, never talks about him. I forget he's on the team.
Yeah. And, I mean, they defaulted to Boston and Kenny during the OTAs. They took the first team reps. And then it was Trey Sermon. And then it was down to Rashad and DeAndre. But DeAndre was more involved when they got to the actual 7-on-7s. You showed the bubble screens, for instance. A lot of Kenny Gainwell, a lot of DeAndre Swift. I don't know. I get that feeling that maybe Rashad Penny is not catching the eye of the coaching staff, or am I just, trying to come up with stuff in the offseason?
Yeah, and he has a non-guaranteed contract, so that's what comes in as well. I do think Rashad Penny makes this football team ultimately. I think you can't ignore the north-south he brings as a running back, and I think he's clearly the best one at doing that. But you're right. Kenny Gainwell was getting a lot of reps. DeAndre Swift was getting a lot of reps. Of course, this is 7-on-7s, and they're using passing. We're not actually seeing them running the ball. I think we're going to see Rashad Penny shine is in 6 weeks from now on July 25th. I think that's where, as long as he's healthy, I think that's always going to be the key with Rashad Penny. He's productive when he's healthy, but can he stay healthy for 5 weeks?
Or is the head coach doing the general manager's bidding? That he's putting the guy out there that they don't think can make the team. But if we talk him up enough, maybe you can get one of those all-important conditional draft picks or trade a spot in the 7th for a trade down in the 6th or whatever. Howie loves to win trades, even if they're on a minimal level. Is Trey Sermon going to bring anything back in a trade? A guy was just flat out cut, and the Eagles had to work just to keep on their practice squad all last year. Well, did they ever put him up on waivers, or did they keep him on the 53 all year, John?
No, they kept Trey all
year long.
Yeah, he was always like a game day in that. He played the Jaguars game, if I remember.
Yeah, the sermon from the book of Job. That was
right.
Their joke.
The inactives every single week. So do you think perchance that they're doing this because Howie thinks he can get something if he puts them on the market for a trade commodity come August?
From my standpoint, no. I don't think I don't think you're going to get anything. You never say never with a conditional 7th round pick, but I don't think Trey Sermon hasn't proven anything, and there's a ton of guys who, other teams have their own guys they fall in love with, and it might be their 6th round pick or their 7th round pick or their undrafted free agent that are also cost effective. So that's kind of why I bring up the unprompted stuff, because when you start talking about trade, like people have mentioned, maybe he's talking up Quez Watkins for trade purposes. That I buy a little bit more, because Quez has a little bit of demonstrated performance, and people might chuckle at that, but he's performed at least at a certain level. There's something there. He's played a lot of snaps, well over 700. So I think that to me is more when you talk about young players, and when you talk about you're either trying to prop them up, and maybe he's just trying to prop them up, trying to get them a little bit of confidence, or it's real. At this position, similar to Christian Ellis, where you guys were talking about when I was off, I don't know if I believe in Christian Ellis, but I believe he's got a chance. I'm starting to believe Trey Sermon has a chance because of need, and because there's some talent there. He was a 3rd round pick. It concerns me San Francisco, a good running team, gave up on him so quick, but there's got to be some talent there.
They also found more value in Eli Mitchell too, which I think that was just luck of the draw. I mean, they drafted 2 running backs, and I think they thought both were going to pan out, and one did. But I'll say this too, John, with Christian Ellis, I hope he can become at least a quarter as good as Caden Ellis, because I love his brother. His brother was a great signing by the Falcons.
Yeah, his brother's a good player. he turned into a pretty good player early, and we'll see his other brother Noah's on the Eagles, and he's healthy from his torn Achilles. So who knows? Luther Ellis, the ex-Giants, Lions Pro Bowl defensive tackle. He's got 12 kids, I think, 7 adopted. Caden's in the NFL, Christian's in the NFL. Noah's trying to work his way in the NFL. And real quick, because Jody and I were just talking about it, so I got to give the fans the heads up. It is official players report on Tuesday, July 25th.
Yeah, I had it, Johnny Mac.
Yeah, well, a little birdie told me that, so I had some inside information there, but it will be Tuesday, July 25th. Lincoln Financial Practice Field, Sunday, August 6th at 7 p.m. That's $10, and season individual tickets for games go on sale June 13th, so tomorrow. So everybody get excited for that.
So we're gonna hear all the Ticketmaster complaints on the Bird app tomorrow, I'm assuming.
Yeah, probably. And tickets.
Now, by the way,
benefit the Eagles Autism Foundation. I got to mention that.
The single game tickets. That's all online, right? Did they even open a ticket window down at Lincoln Financial Field anymore?
To my knowledge, no, they don't do that anymore.
Yeah,
that was good stuff for both television and radio. You had a guy who reported, go down there, get in line with the guys, get them screaming, yell. That's good stuff. Nobody does that anymore. Do you get on your app?
For young 11, 12-year-old Jeff Kerr, that was awesome waiting in line for the Eagles-Bucks 2000 wild card game and getting those tickets during your week off from school.
For some reason, you used to be able to buy tickets at Wanamaker's, if everybody remembers Wanamaker's. I have no idea why.
I didn't know they sold tickets there.
Oh, yeah. They had a ticket outlet at Wanamaker's in Philadelphia. But
fun story about Wanamaker's and Hess's and all those department stores. My family actually keeps those boxes and wraps Christmas up in them. Yeah,
nice. You get a Wanamaker's box.
Yeah, I get a Wanamaker's box. I feel like I'm in the 80s.
You know what was cool back then is you would keep your tickets. You'd have the memento. Now just put out your phone. Yeah, you just bring out your phone. It's gone. You just delete it from your wallet, whatever.
I still have a lot of my old Eagles playoff tickets. I got the first game at Citizens Bank Park, the last game at the Vet. I still have those ticket stubs.
It's no more.
I still have the ticket stub from the game when the ball went through Buckner's legs.
That's crazy.
I will have that for the rest of my life.
Laminate that thing.
Now, oops, it's gone on your phone. You were there, one of the greatest games of all time. You went, no, it's not there. It's on your phone. It was an app. You're gone. See you later. Bye. That's some things. Advancement in technology is actually made less palatable in life, but that's just old man Jody Mac barking, get off my lawn, you young kids. All right, Jeff Kerr, with now the fact that we know the Eagles are going to be down for a month, nowhere to be seen for a month. Guys like you have to try and ferret out stories, you and Johnny Mac both, about what the hell the Eagles are doing while they're away from Philadelphia for a month. I brought this back up last week, and I know I sound like the Grinch. First, I'm the old man. Now I'm the Grinch. They're not going to have someone overwatching Jalen Carter, but how much do you think the Eagles talk to his teammates, his former Georgia teammates and the like, to just stay in touch with Jalen Carter? Because the Eagles got one of the most talented players, maybe the most talented player in the draft at the number 9 slot for a reason. He had off-field issues. This is the time when they're away from the structure that is the Philadelphia Eagles. Eagles drafted him because they believe in their structure. But this is the one downtime of the year where the structure might not be good enough to keep a kid from getting into trouble. How much oversight do you think the Eagles will try and keep in any way, shape, or form on Jalen Carter?
I think this is where a guy like Jordan Davis comes in. And Jordan Davis said this, 2 Thursdays ago, John? He was telling us about, hey, look, these guys need to ride somewhere. If they need to go to a Wawa, if they need to just get out of, I'm going to be there. I think it's going to be the Jordan Davises, the Kobe Deans, the Kaylee Ringos, his teammates at Georgia, I think are going to be the ones again through these 6 weeks.
Yeah, Nolan Smith too. Nolan's at he's got a little Jalen Hurts in him. He's so mature as a young person. So, yeah, I think you're right. Jordan Davis seems to be taking on that mantle as well. Um, and I'm sure the Eagles will say, "Hey, make sure you check in on him a little bit more." But there's only so much they can do. Everybody goes through the same thing in this league, and the Eagles have been pretty good at. Um, it was kind of chuckled to cheerleaders episode. There have been a few episodes off the field, but that's going to happen. 90 guys. It happens to every NFL team. The Eagles have been pretty good avoiding those things. I think that's about the stuff you do before, not after. I mean, you got to do all your due diligence. There are certain guys you want to stay away from them. I
Right.
think they do a pretty good job of that. And that's one of the reasons why I support the Jalen Carter move and the draft pick. The talent is unquestioned. But if they feel it's worth it, that adds some weight to me because they've been good at this stuff in the past. It's just like demonstrated performance again. All right. This team's been good at this stuff. So do they deserve the benefit of the doubt, or am I giving them too much, Jeff?
No, I think they deserve the benefit of the doubt. I mean, what was the last major Eagles all-season storyline that was negative between June and July? Was it Nigel Bradham? Is that the last one?
I don't know the timing. That was a great Jim Sword quote, by the way. But
the Cabana thing.
If you keep doing stupid stuff, people are going to start calling you stupid. But Darryl Worley, people forget about him.
He got cut too.
Yeah, he got cut right away. Not a lot. Nelson got in trouble. Josh Huff, I'm not sure the timing of the Josh
Huff was October, wasn't it?
Yeah,
wasn't it during the bye week? It was right after he had that big game where he won Special Teams Player of the Week.
Yeah. So the timing's off there. Yeah, they haven't had a lot of problems recently.
Yeah. We joke in the national media, especially at CBS, like, oh, this is the time where you start hearing about Cowboys stuff, and not in a good light.
Yeah, this is where Mike Florio made his bones with his arrest ticker that he conveniently forgets about.
Love the arrest ticker. So here's my question for both you guys, since we're talking about Carter and them getting a number 9, and the Eagles not having many issues over the last 5 years, 10 years with drafted players and getting them in trouble. Is it because they have this good inner structure that they bring people in and make them part of their culture and do the right thing and keep an eye on them and have their teammates work with them and maybe turn a guy's overall outlook on life around? Or do they just have the ability to say, yeah, we're not taking a guy because we're not sure if we can control. We know what the talent level is, but it's too big a risk. Do we know which one it is with Jalen Carter? Because we know some people graded him the most talented player in the draft. Either he or Anderson. You're not going to knock the teams who took quarterbacks in the first 4 picks in the draft for passing on him. But Seattle takes a DB. Arizona takes an offensive lineman. The Raiders take Tyree Wilson, who's an edge compared to a tackle, but another defensive lineman. And the Falcons take Bijan Robinson. We'll see how that works out. A lot of people in Philadelphia wanted that to be the Eagles' pick. Which one is it here? Is it the Eagles that good at just bringing a guy along and changing his outlook on life, or that they got a little lucky here because other teams decided they weren't going to take a chance on a player?
I think the Eagles were very fortunate that they were able to get themselves in the position to get Jalen Carter, just because, as you said, Joey, with the teams with the quarterbacks, okay, that is what it is. Everybody needs a quarterback. But Seattle could have taken him. I didn't think he was going to get past Detroit at 6. And then the Cardinals traded up. And I'm like, well, maybe they could take him. But they always like Paris Johnson, which I heard the Falcons really wanted Paris Johnson. And then he was taken. So Tyree Wilson's off the board. They pivot and said, you know what? We'll just take who we feel is the best player available. We trust our offensive line, who's one of the best run blocking offensive lines in football. I know I said one. I didn't say they were the best, but they decided to get him, and then all of a sudden, Jalen Carter's still on the board. But I know some of these teams wouldn't touch him with the 10.5-foot pole, and I thought the team that would have been the Seattle Seahawks, but I think they want someone to help Tariq Woolen out and Quandre Diggs and guys like that. So they got Devin Witherspoon, which I can't blame him. I thought he was the best cornerback in the draft personally, but I don't have much of an issue with teams picking the guys they pick, but you just keep letting good players fall to good organizations, and you wonder why good organizations stay good.
Yeah, and Jody went down the whole list except the one team that passed on him twice, essentially. And Ryan Poles went public and said, "I can't take him." Essentially, admitted it, and he said, He also said he thinks Philadelphia's a great spot for him because, and that's one of the underrated parts of Howie Roseman's success. And I've talked about it a bunch on this show. I'll bring it up again here because we brought it up. He can do these things. Other guys, Ryan Poles, cannot. He can't do it. And I don't blame him. But the bottom line is the Chicago Bears, and Jody knows I've been tough on them, and this is part of the reason why. They have the first pick in the draft, right? They can't take the kid at number 1. They trade down. They're probably hoping, well, we don't have to worry about that anymore. Oh, no, they had to worry about it again. Now they got something extra. Give them a round of applause for that.
They got 2 something extras.
But the bottom line is they started at number 1 overall, and they got Darnell Wright. And maybe he turns into a 10-time Pro Bowl.
I think he is going to be a good player, but I don't think he's going to be Jalen Carter.
And they could have had Jalen Carter or Will Anderson or whatever. They're not going to take a quarterback.
So, John, I have to – right now I'm actually writing the best offseason move for each team, whether it was coach hire or, draft pick or whatever. And I put the Bears – what they did, how much they traded, how much they got back for the number 1 pick. But I said, they still could have drafted the guy they probably would have drafted number 1 if there wasn't any baggage. And that was Jalen Carter. And I just happened to mention it in a footnote, they still made an awesome trade and they still could have gotten the guy they wanted.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
But they did add a talented wide receiver, which they desperately needed and got future draft assets. I think Chicago did fine, and I was a big fan of Wright. I know you're a combine guy. He was the best offensive lineman in the combine. He was better than Paris Johnson, who I know had a better regular season, and that's why he went first. But I think Wright's going to be a stud in the NFL.
I think the tackles in this class were very good, especially the ones in the first round. I think most of the guys that got tackles, or most of the teams, I think they're going to be more than happy with what they got.
I think Jeff hit the nail on the head, man. These bad teams keep giving good teams good players, and it doesn't make freaking sense. Like if I'm an NFC team, if I'm San Francisco, if I'm Dallas, if I'm Detroit, even if you want to throw Minnesota, New Orleans,
but isn't Detroit only 1 year removed from being a bad team? Not even 1 year, half a year removed from being a bad team.
Well, they're typically a bad team. They've been a bad team for a long time. They're finally turning around. All I'm trying to say is I don't have any hair, but if I had hair, I'd pull it out. Like how are you giving the Philadelphia Eagles freaking Jalen Carter? I don't know, but they did.
I say this in baseball, too, with the Atlanta Braves. Why does everybody let the Atlanta Braves get good players? Why do they let them get Matt Olson, Sean Murphy, and everybody? Why does everybody let Alex Anthopoulos just run the National League?
Yeah.
It's weird.
It's amazing to me that the Philadelphia Eagles ended up with Jalen Carter. This is going to be my prediction, and I've been very high, Jody knows, on Jalen Carter. This is going to be one of those you look back in 10 years and go, what the hell was everybody thinking? Why are they letting this team get this player? It's astonishing to me.
Everybody's so excited about Nolan Smith, and I said, I'm telling you guys are going to love watching Jalen Carter in camp. You really are.
Yeah, I think when people start to see him, they're going to get it. And to Ryan's credit, and I've been hard on Ryan because I think he's in this new age, and I'll say the same thing about Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah, the same division. You know, they're very analytics driven, and I hope it works for him. I hope it works for him. But they're followers. They're not leaders. And to a certain extent, and we lost Jody. I get it. They're not allowed to do it. And that's where I think Jeffrey Lurie factors into this in a very big way. Look, I think if Brian Poles was allowed, I don't think he's a dummy. I think he would have taken the kid. He couldn't take the kid because he's going to get fired if he gets a ticket in Chicago. And if it doesn't work out, he can't afford even that small percentage chance that it blows up, because again, we're not talking about John Dillinger. We're talking about a kid who made some mistakes, and one was very tragic, but we're not talking about somebody who's robbing people or doing horrendous things. We're talking about an immature, extremely talented kid. I don't know. And I give him credit for admitting it. He went on Chicago 670 the score and said, I can't take him. I think Philadelphia's a great place for him. Why can't he take it?
Right.
That's not his fault.
I'll explain to you, John. This would just be my theory. No other team, a whole bunch of other teams, Bears passed on them, but we just went through Seattle and the Raiders and other teams that took them. How many of those teams have Brandon Graham and Fletcher Cox? Veteran guys, been there before, mentors who can be. None. How many of those teams have two of his college teammates that they drafted the year before, one of which who played right next to him on the defensive line, and the other one who played right behind him as a linebacker? None. So the Eagles, it wasn't as much the Eagles are this structured organization and Howie Roseman is so much smarter than everybody else. It was kind of like circumstances fell their way. They were in a unique position to be able to take a chance on a guy. If the Eagles hadn't taken him, do you think he goes to the next pick at number, Gary? Well, if they hadn't moved up to 9.
It wouldn't have been 10. That would have been great if they didn't take him.
Yeah, they pass on him twice, and they
10.
trade down again and pass on him.
Yeah.
I'm still curious.
No, but by the way, real quick, I think now I'll take the quarterback teams out of it because they're looking for quarterbacks. But it doesn't matter if it's Houston, if it's Seattle, if it's Arizona, Las Vegas, Atlanta. They all made mistakes because they all took lesser players. They had a chance to get the best player in the draft, and they didn't take it.
I was told going into that draft he wasn't getting past Detroit at 6. If you had to trade up to get him, you had to trade up to 6. And then Detroit trades down, and they draft the running back at 12. And
right. So your info must not have been accurate, Jeff.
Well, things change on draft night. Brad Holmes said he had an offer he couldn't refuse. And he never was even asked about Jalen Carter. It's crazy how no one asked him about it. And they needed a defensive tackle. I would love to pair him with Aiden Hutchinson. But again, structure probably not in place, and which I don't get because I think Dan Campbell's run a pretty good ship there. And I think they got leaders in that Detroit locker room now.
And I'm telling you, just my opinion. I'm telling you, I don't think it was because of Nick Sirianni. I think it was because of the players they have in this team. That they thought that they could watch over, help guide, keep his nose clean on the defensive side of the ball. But we'll find out over time. And hopefully he doesn't give us anything to talk about for the next 6 weeks because of issues off the field. We'll just continue to talk about I-95 instead. And we'll continue to bring Jeff Kerr on with us every once in a while. Jeff, thanks for jumping in. Good luck getting down to all those Phillies games on Sundays through the traffic with 95 falling apart. At least the Eagles are staying together. Thanks for hopping on today, bud.
Yeah, no problem, guys. By the way, I think the biggest story for me this week, because I'm a baseball nut, is hearing how much different the pitch clock is in Reading and Lehigh Valley and how they were trained at the pitch clock at those levels compared to Major League Baseball, who actually hires their own people, and they still can't get it right in Philadelphia.
Carr, you got to call somebody at cbssports.com and start writing a baseball column. If that's your biggest story, well, it is actually ongoing and football's not. So, Jeff, good stuff. Thanks, brother.
Yeah,
Thanks, Jeff.
top quarterback head coach duos are coming out in a month. Guarantee you, Nick Sirianni and Jalen Hurts are on.
Oh, they better be number one, or you're going to get a lot of what from.
How can I? Come on, everybody knows who number one is. I think it's who's fighting for two at this point.
There you go.
You're probably right.
Jeff Kirk here with us on Birds 365. All right, come back, put a bow in the show. Running a little late here on Birds 365.